All right. Hello. Welcome. Okay. How you doing? Okay. Cool. 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 All right. Let's start some serious time traveling. You just saw actually, and that's me also wearing the outfit. So you just saw what all has been added to software developers recently in the last 10 years. There's a lot. We don't just like writing software anymore, right? It's not just like about just like writing the code. There's also now the operational sides that we take care of, and also the security and governance that we have to take care of. So there's a lot new things coming on the shoulders of software developers. Famous or just like smart people call it shift left, and now they are actually saying like, you know what? We really like that you're doing all those things, but can you be more productive now again, right? And this is the thing, like how do we get more productive if we just like get more stuff on our shoulders? So everyone is just like claiming how do we get more back to productivity? I think this is the wrong questions, but let's have a look where this productivity obsession comes from that everyone has in this industry. And I mean, I don't wear this outfit just for fun because I will take you on a time travel. Is that okay with you if you just like travel with me in time back? That's just like nodding. Can I hear something as yes or no? Okay, for everyone that is not, yeah, great. For everyone that is not okay, right, you can just like go outside and come back in 5 minutes, and I guarantee you, we'll be back in time. I will bring you back to the year 2023. So let's travel back in time to the year 1898, and the Bethlehem Steel Factory, they had some productivity issues. So they had some serious productivity issues. And at that time, they couldn't call McKinsey or the Boston Consulting Group, bring in a bunch of consultants and help them with the productivity stuff. These companies didn't exist at that time. But they hired one guy actually, and his name is actually Frederick Winslow Taylor. Some of you might have heard of him. Who had heard of Frederick Winslow Taylor? Taylorism? Anyone? Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, so Frederick Winslow Taylor actually came in and said, okay, let me just observe what the factory workers are doing. So he looked actually at the factory workers. The first thing that he noticed was they were shuffling, right, shoveling coal, and then he noticed that coal was falling left and right from the shuffle. So the first thing that he did, just like, why don't we give the workers better shuffles, right? So they can shuffle better and not everything is falling down from the shuffle. So awesome tooling helped them to increase productivity. That's the first thing. The second thing is just like he took out his stopwatch, right? And timed everything. So, and then he looked at how much people could carry in the beginning of the day versus at the end of the day. And obviously, people could carry more in the beginning of the day than at the end of the day, right? So he just looked at it and said, why don't we give the workers actually more breaks? So more breaks in between helped also to increase the productivity of the factory workers. And all in all, Frederick Winslow Taylor increased the productivity of the factory workers by 400%. This is really, really big, right? It's a big number, right? But hey, don't get me wrong, everything comes with a flip side. So everything counts with the flip side. Also, this productivity increase, because Frederick Winslow Taylor actually introduced some new roles, right? The workers were just like doing repetitive tasks. They were told what they should do. They weren't supposed to think. So the workers shouldn't think, right? They shouldn't just like think. There was actually another role invented, and that was the management. That was supposed to think for the workers and tell the workers what to do, right? To be more productive. The managers were now sitting there with a stopwatch and trying to make the workers more productive. You know what? This is actually 125 years ago, right? So now let's move back to just like the year 2023 and so look how we actually measure developer or want to measure developer productivity. I'm gonna just like take that off because it's freaking warm. Sorry. And we're done with time travel, so that's over. So the first job that I actually got my manager asked me, hey Sven, we need to report some numbers up, right? So can you please count the lines of code that you added? And we all know this is just like a stupid metric to measure or try to measure productivity. That's just like stupid because I can just like add a lot of lines of code that doesn't tell anything about how productive I was. But then we got a little smarter and say, oh, now let's see how many tasks we can move over into the done column, right? And look at that. But it's also just like not a good measurements because some tasks are actually larger, some are smaller. So it's not really a good measurements to just like measure the task. And then we came up with story points, right? So, but story point has a problem that story points are an estimate, right? That doesn't really say how productive we are, but it's an estimate how much we think this task how much this think his task takes time, right? To work on. But not only that, right? The Fibonacci numbers, I can't remember actually the Fibonacci numbers, so we came up with t-shirt sizes. Well, small, medium, large stories, right? Same issue, right? It doesn't say about how productive we are. And now we're adding things like cycle time or deployment frequency, all good, right? And now what are we doing? Let's say we have a great measurements, right? We found a good measurement to measure productivity. But what are we doing then, right? Then we come back to say, okay, right, how can we actually be more productive and increase those numbers? Just like make more pull requests or faster pull requests or more story points into an iteration, right? We're just like trying to be better and be more productive. And that comes still from the Taylorism times, right? We tend to go back to those things, the humans tend to go back to things that they have learned before. So people think like this is working, right? We just like have to stay there with a stopwatch and say, okay, we need to increase that, and somehow we just like increase it. But that's actually, and I'm talking to a lot of developers here, that's why we call it actually developer experience, right? And I don't get me wrong, it's a great word. I think it's better than just like looking at just like the productivity and just like increase the experience. But now there are actually these consultant groups that are now there, and they're trying to just like make money out of it, and they create frameworks and just like how to become a better developer experience. They add certifications already to this thing. So that's actually why we at Atlassian looked at it and said, okay, why don't we just like go back to the things that actually gave the reason why we became a developer. And that's the joy of development software. And you might say, okay, yeah, it's not always fun, right? We're making serious software. But guess what? If you are working on great quality code, right? Your code is just like cool and beautiful. And then you have great progress. The team just like drags stories through in no time. You have an idea on Monday, it gets deployed on Wednesday, all good, great, right? Progress is flowing. And your customers love what you're doing. They give you the feedback and say, wow, this is amazing, right? This is amazing software, we love it. And if you just like go on improve all these three things, guess what? You are enjoying what you do, and you're productive at the same time because you're working on the right things, right? Okay, so I brought some stories with me from teams at Atlassian, how they just like looked at this and tried to improve their developer joy. So there are some stories from internal Atlassians how they did it. So assuming that actually you built this nice little thing, or this nice big thing actually, it's quite big, and this is a product that you built, right? And your customer love it. And then your customer comes in and says, oh, we love your product. It's beautiful. It's great. Can you please change this small little thing? And they say, yeah, sure. Yeah, I open my IDE and then look at my code, and your code looks like this. It's a mess, right? And don't get me wrong. I mean, who here works on real beautiful code on that code base? There was real beautiful code in there. 1, 2, really? Right? I think with every code base, this happens here. Technical debt, right? It's the first day you think your code is great. Second day you think, could be better. The third day you think just like, yeah, I should have rewrite that, right? So this is actually what you have in your code base. And we did a survey and we asked software developers, and 42% of the development time is to just like deal with technical debt, right? just like looking at it, just like finding things, and deal with the technical debt. And just 10% of the developers are actually consciously managing their technical debt, right? So said this is just like this is a down spiral. We're just like going down. It's getting worse and worse. So we have to do something about it. So another story here. When I actually just like before I went on vacation, I wrote this nice class. Let's don't look at the code, but let's assume it's a super nice class. You're super proud of it. It's just like single responsibility, everything just like what you dream of, right? It's just like super cool. Then you say, okay, I check it in, put it in production, and go on vacation, right? And then after 2 weeks, you come back to work and says like, oh, let's open my beautiful class again. I want to see like get inspired by it or so. And it really starts out nicely, but then my coworkers have actually changed it quite significantly. Oh my God. All right, so, and also this happened, and my coworkers don't consciously said, oh, let's mess up Sven's class, right? Let's mess this up. It looks so beautiful, so just like, let's mess it up. It's not like this. But they actually came in, and for some reasons, they added stuff to it because it needed to be added or whatever, right? Or they just like put it in there and said, I want to fix it on Monday, but on Monday there was some other issues, so they forgot about it. Happens to all of us, right? But I know you're smarter than my team was at that time. I know that because you have coding guidelines, and you coding guidelines should have caught this, right? You have coding guidelines, right? And they caught it. Okay, great. Okay. That's actually what the Bitbucket team started also with, just like to agree on something on coding guidelines, how they want to develop code. And it's not about just the style guidelines, it's also just like what are our values and in coding, right? Like the single responsibility principle, right? This is important for us as a team, so everyone has to apply to it, right? And a lot of things of these things here that the team wrote down and put on a page, just like that can be checked automatically. There are tools that does that, but not all of these things can be checked automatically, right? So how do we check things like single responsibility principle until we have an AI that actually can help us with that? Yeah. So we're doing code reviews, right? And you're all doing code reviews. Everything got reviewed. Every line of code that get added gets reviewed. Great. You're doing code reviews, right? Okay, great. Just to have an agreement there. But a lot of teams are actually struggling with doing code reviews. And why is that, right? Assuming I have added this code here, right? It's just like easy. It's a while loop, whatever, no big deal. And then someone on the pull request just like comments on it and say, what the fuck, Sven? Say, oh my God, okay, good. I'm a polite person, you know, I'm very polite, and say, okay, let's ask, right? What do you mean, right? And then this person comes back and says, this code looks ugly. Say, okay, wow. Wow. So I immediately say, okay, I don't want to do code reviews anymore. I just like feel just like this is my work, and people just like criticizing it this way, right? It's okay if people don't agree with me, but criticizing it this way, that's not the right way to do it, right? But as I said, I'm a polite person and say, okay, let's ask one more time. So why do you think this code is ugly? And then this person says, oh, you know what? A for loop would have been nicer. Right? I say, what nicer? What does that mean, right? Nicer, right? A while loop works. What do we mean by nicer? Okay, explain me more. So if you are the person here on the right-hand side, just like one advice here, don't be a jerk, right? Don't be a jerk, right? So just like be reasonable. So who has been bullied by a jerk in the last 2 months, let's say? Oh no, don't raise your hands. It's fine. I know your coworkers are in the room, so it's all good, all good. All right. Anyway, but those people and those comments actually, these are the reasons why people don't like code reviews. That's just like holding people back for not doing code reviews because actually you put yourself out there, right? So the Jira team actually had the same problems that people were just like, oh yeah, we need to do it, right, somehow, because we want to do it, like we want to review the code before it goes in production, but we really don't like these code review things. So they actually looked at it this way. So the reviewer is actually in this protected bubble, right? You can just like throw things out of this, where the author is actually very open. So they said, okay, the first thing, assume competence for your coworkers, right? They get hired for a reason, right? And everyone just like agreed to hire this person. So this person should be competent to do their job. So this is the first thing, right? Assume competence. The second thing is be constructive in your feedback, right? This code looks ugly, not very constructive, right? And then also explain the reasoning, right? Why do you think, right, a for loop would be better? Explain those reasoning. So the team actually wrote this down in a couple of rules, and of course we're using Confluence everywhere, so we just like have a page there where the team actually agreed on these are our code review rules that we follow after. And you know what? Less bullying, right, or no bullying at all, right? That leads to more developer joy, and we enjoy more what we do, and we got better code quality at the same time, which also increases developer joy. Win-win. Next story is from the Confluence team, right? So the Confluence team are actually like all teams running automated tests, right? So automated tests, and sometimes it happened that you just like build just to program something, you code something, and then your test actually turns red. Well, it's not the end of life, right? It's good that we have those tests. So the test caught it, great. So now what's next, right? You look at the code and say, what did I change? And then you look at the test log files and see why does the test fail? And look at the code again and say, after 20 minutes, half an hour, you say, I can't find the reason why the test has failed. Okay. Next thing is just like you just like rerun the test, and then boom, test is green. Great. Okay, we can go on, right? No. So we just have discovered a flaky test, right? So oh, it's time for a short commercial. I'll be back in a sec.
Is seeing red build after red build getting old? Is rerunning your failed jobs getting you down? Is waiting on those failed jobs to finish making you crazy? Deterministic reliability is here to help. With our handy-dandy flaky test monitoring system, we will, eventually, automatically bypass those flaky tests. For 4 easy payments of free, you too can save time, ship quality code faster, be more productive, feel so much better when you go to work every day. You will be happier, your team will be happier, you'll stop dying inside, you'll stop banging your head against your desk, you'll stop replacing computers that are in a rage against the wall. Sorry. It's just a little close to home. Call 1-800-ATLASIAN today to get your free flake monitoring system.
All right, we don't have a flaky test detector out in the open, so the team actually built that flaky test detector and then made this video and put it out on our Confluence instance. Just like went viral. So now more teams are actually using a flaky test detector, right? But how does it work, right? It's pretty easy. You create a pull request, test kicks off automatically, right? Test failed. So the flaky test detector looks at it and say, okay, let's rerun this test, and then rerun test 1-2 times, and then test is green. Great. So flaky test detected. Great. The next thing is the flaky test detector marks this test as skip test, right? So skip this test. It's flaky. We don't want to have this test. Creates automatically a comment in the pull request to look at it, right? Look at fixing this test, and also sends up a Slack message in the team chat to say just like someone looks at this, please at this test or this pull request, because we just like have a flaky test detected. All of this means just like it's less debug frustration, right? Going in, debugging, trying to find something, and then discover after 1 or 2 hours, just like, oh, it was a flaky test, right? So less frustration on this side, right? So what's also important is for developers for their joy is actually flow, right? We love it when we're being in the flow, when we're just like concentrating and programming, and it's getting dark outside, but we didn't notice because we're so much into it. So this is really great, but not just optimizing this state, but software development actually has more phases, like the test phase, right? The build and test phase and the deploy phase. And we can optimize those phases just in timing, just like build and test phase, running the tests in parallel, or the deploy phase, just like deploy not the whole monolith at once, just like deploy some microservice, whatever. We can just like do things. But there's one thing actually that takes a lot of time, right? And this is the review phase. So the review phase takes a lot of time actually. It can actually take days, right, until a pull request is just like approved and get merged into the code base. And this is also a problem that the Confluence team had, right? So they actually measured it, right? And 3 days on average they had from opening a pull request to just like merge it back on the code base, which means 3 days on working on something else and then coming back after 3 days and saying, oh, wow, now I can just like look at all those comments and just like, I don't know what I worked on 3 days before, so I have to just like get into it. So we need to shorten, the team wanted to shorten that time. Actually, there was one team, let's assume that these are the open pull requests, right? And these are the reviewers that are attached to this pull requests. And now actually there's one team lead, Punit Arora. And Punit actually, what he does, or what he did, is he pinged every developer in the morning that was on an open pull request, review on an open pull request, and says, you know what, you might have missed the notification. You might have missed the email, it came in, maybe you were just like super busy, you were in the flow, it's fine, right? But before you start working today, can you please look at these open pull requests and just like add your comments or accept it or whatever, right? But please look at those things, right? And it helped the team tremendously until the team said, okay, Punit, we know that this is not your job actually to ping us, so we replace you by a bot called the Punit bot. And now the Punit bot is actually doing this in the morning for the team, pinging everyone and says, yeah, sorry to just like disturb you here, but please, can you so your coworkers can move on with their work. And they measured it afterwards, and they went down from 3 days to 1.2 days actually of an average time of a pull request. Still very long, but it's getting better. So this actually means less wait time for the developers. Wait until everyone approved the pull request, and more developer joy. All right. So as I said, like flow is super important, right? That the work flows through our pipelines, and that we just like can move on with our work, always move on with our work. So I found something on the internet which is just like a traffic junction simulation, and that simulates traffic flow. So traffic flow, actually, I want to compare them with work, right? So this is a traffic junction, no rules at all, just like super chaos, cars trying to find their way through that junction. And the simulation says it has 191 cars per minute. Okay, we know that this is just like cars slowing down and just like finding their way, probably not the best way, right? It's also a little bit dangerous. But let's just like add some rules, like traffic lights, right? So let's add some rules to the processes and follow those rules. If the traffic light is red, cars need to stop. Traffic light green, cars can go full speed ahead, right? So also this simulation runs, and the traffic flow is 235 cars per minute here. So we increased the flow. Great, cool. But if we compare it to work, we don't want to work with strict processes, right? Red, we have to wait. Green, we can go full speed, right? We don't want to work with those strict processes. We're working in an agile way, right? We have small little iterations that we run on. Okay, let's try that. So it looks more like this is a roundabout, right? So if you see that roundabout here, you can see every time there's a slot, the cars move in, and there's actually also a fast lane where the cars can just like go in fast. So assuming that, just like if there's a free slot at the design team, and you just like have a design request, it just like gets slotted in. That's a little bit like the agile way of working, right? Great. So traffic flow here is 360 cars, right? Okay, great. We have it, right? Agile proof here. Agile is the right way to do it. Traffic proves it. Great. But there's one more thing, and it's called the stack interchange, right? And the stack interchange is a pretty sophisticated junction, I would say. And you can see the cars are not slowing down at all. They have all the same speed, and no one is just like stopping or slowing down, and they merge magically into each other, right? So what does that mean actually for us, right? Traffic flow 1099, yeah, this is what we want to have, right? It means like we need to run autonomous teams, right? Teams that can run autonomously without any dependencies on other teams. So just like cross-functional teams, autonomous teams, but of course highly aligned, right? So if I say cross-functional, we need probably designer in the team, in a development team. We need some QA people, ops people, and so on, all in the team, right? The problem is only, also at Atlassian, we don't have enough designers to put it on every software development team, and then not every team needs a full-time designer on the team. So also here, the solution is shift left, right? So we replace everyone with just like developers. We have developers, so we just like they can do the job. Great. So the Trello team was actually having the same issue with that the QA team actually said, okay, great. We are normally doing the exploratory testing, so testing with a test plan, and you're doing the automatic test. So you can now take over, shifting left, you can now take over, right, and do the exploratory testing, and we can go to Bali and drink some pina colada. Great, okay, have fun. Well, this is not what the QA team did at the Trello team. They call it not quality assurance, they now call it quality assistance. So they actually help the developers. Still, the developers are in charge of the test because we don't want to have dependencies from the QA team to wait for them to just like say, this feature is okay, right? You can put it into production. But they just like helping them to become better testers. So they put it that way, right? They did this feature test strategy. So before actually the developer goes in and develops a feature, they look at the user story, and then they just like say, okay, if you want to test, if this feature is ready, you're going to test this, 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 and this. So they wrote down the test plan for the feature actually before the feature got developed. And then the QA person can just like go, and the developer is developing the feature and just like going through the test plan and then deploy the feature to production. There's one more safety net there that we have in there called a demo session, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, where the QA people can actually attend a demo and just like say, have you tried to test this or this? But it's not stopping them from deploying. So we don't have to wait for a QA engineer to just like make the green tick on it. And the QA engineers actually, they can help actually have more time to help with test automation, building an automation platform, test databases, and so on and so on. So also this actually means at the end, less developer cognitive load, because they don't have the whole like, oh, now we need also to test it, but we got help by the tests, and more developer joy. All right, let's create some value. So assuming that a customer actually wants this here, right? This is what a customer imagines, right? And then what sometimes we as developer build is like, okay, we know what you want. You want a car, and we know better, and then we build this here, like, I don't know if anyone has seen this Homer Simpson's episode, where Homer built this car, and it's just like super fancy car with cup holders and everything, what he thinks like the user wants, right? But why is that the disconnect between sometimes what the users want and what we build? We have actually a big product department, like product managers. They should take care of this, right? They are normally doing a lot of research, a lot of measurements, improvements, interviews and experiments, and building some prototypes, right? So they're doing all those things up front, right? They're caring about why, what's the problem. And then they squeeze it into small little user stories and throw it over the wall to developers, and the developers then just like, all right, let's develop the software. And of course, if you don't know the why this is important and why you're going to build it, you're probably not going to build the right thing, right? So we need to bring actually these two disciplines more together. And also the other way around, right? If the software developers build something, they need to talk to the product manager. Is that really what you want, right? Or what our customers want? So the Jira team actually had this issue and said, okay, we need to bring the disciplines closer together. The disciplines of product management, operations, development, everything needs to just like work better together, the whole software development life cycle. We shouldn't just concentrate on this make phase, just like where we create the software. We should also be involved in the wonder phase, what we call the wonder phase, where we talk about what is the problem, right? What is the problem that we want to solve? So being involved there, but there's more phases actually. We also created the solution phase. So sometimes actually you just like start, okay, I know what our users want. They want this, right? But that's a problem, and it's not only one solution to the problem. So we need to discover more solutions to the problem. Not the first one that comes to mind is the best one. So also in the solution phase, we need to be more involved actually, and also in the impact phase. This is also what a lot of companies forget, right? To have an impact phase and just like measure how the users uses the new feature, and if the feature is undiscoverable, we need to do something, for example, about it. But not that developers are not involved 100% in all those phases. There's, of course, where developers are just like informed and sometimes really a little bit more involved. They're probably more involved in the make phase, and the product people are probably involved in different phases. So how do we do that now that people work more together, right? And that everyone gets involved in everything. So we actually defined some milestones on this way, and don't get me wrong, it's not a waterfall process, everything is interconnected, but we're doing a project kickoff. So once we have the problem identified, we just like the product managers, they just like involve everyone, just like designers, IT operations, researchers, and just like saying, this is what the problem is, and this is what we want to solve. Then they're building the prototypes, and not only just like Figma prototypes, but also the developers jump in and says, I don't know if this is really technically feasible. Before we started, we just like try it out. So there's a specific phase. I already told you about the demo phase, where we just like have demos. We're doing regular demos with product managers, with IT operations, weekly demos where we demo the software, where we involve everyone. And then also in the impact phase, we are also getting together and talk about just like what are the goals and signals and measurements that really may mean success for our feature that we built. So I don't want to just like bore you with all those phases, but I think like what we are as software developers most involved in is the demo phases. This is not happening too often anymore. Normally these are over Zoom, but it's the same thing. We just like these sessions are open and everyone can join. And these are also recorded, so I can actually watch all the Jira team sessions, demo sessions that they have. So I can go in and watch those sessions. So everyone can actually join those sessions. And this is important, right? That everyone can just like go in and give feedback, right? So, and then it is also outcome oriented. So we're talking about creating customer value, not implementation details. We're creating how do we create customer value, right? And what is the customer value here? It's a group thinking exercise, so we challenge the solution, and sometimes it actually happens that the product manager says, oh, I know what you're building here, and we know we have defined it so in our user stories, but let us take this back to the customer and see if it really resonates with them. To just like not avoid the situation where we just like deploy it, and then we see like, oh, customer didn't like it. So also early in the process, intervene. And then also if you have everyone in the room, just like celebrate milestones together. If you just like deploy a certain thing, just like, or have a feature flag and just like open it for a small amount of users and the users like it, just like it's important to just like celebrate together. So involve everyone means actually rework frustration, less rework frustration, and all of this is more developer joy. All right, so I told you, just like I show you a couple of stories, what teams did, how teams changed the way they worked, because they wanted to just like have more joy in their software development. But what would Frederick Winslow Taylor say, right? Back to the Bessemer Steel Factory. What are the numbers that we can measure, right? Peter Drucker once said, like, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So we need to measure something. How do we measure now our productivity? So it's just like one thing, if you want to start with that, you probably heard about the DORA metrics, so start with the DORA metrics. But the DORA metrics also doesn't make sense for all the teams. Deployment frequency, if you're building a monolith, probably not so important, right, than for a microservice team. So look at the DORA metrics, and that's fine, but also choose those metrics that are important for your team. There are so many things that you can measure, but look at where is the team really struggling, and how how do we fix that, right? And just like, oh, do we want to fix that? Or is that number okay? Just like if you look at the numbers, is that cool, right? So what we use actually at Atlassian is our own tool. It's called Compass, and you can just like have different measurements and different scorecards. We measure it on the microservice level, so more on the team level actually. And then if a scorecard turns red, because also we're adding baselines to it, we are actually need to do something. But this is exactly the problem, right? What should we do, right? And sometimes I call it also here, back in the days, we had these wall boards hanging in the offices, right? Where just like we saw the builds. And this is really the problem. Like if one build is or one metric is down, you just like say, okay, let's fix that. But if just like 5 metrics are down, you say just like, yeah, whatever, right? We go on, right? We're still moving on forward. It's just like the metrics, and we ignore it, right? I call it the wallboard problem. So what we do is actually also a weekly ritual that we're doing, and we call it check-ops. So we check actually the metrics together as a team, right? And we look at it and say, is that okay, right? We know, okay, deployment frequency went down because we're working on a very complicated part of the code right now, and we can't deploy that often. So it's okay that this value is down. No alarms, nothing, but we need to just like watch it. So maybe next week this value should go up again. Or we just like, oh, we need to do something here. We are really frustrated by this, so let's do something together. And we have built that into Compass, so you just like can do the check ops directly in Compass and just like talk about it and document what you wanna fix, or use Confluence for it or whatever, right? But now's the question that I always get, like, these are team metrics. So what on a global scale, like on an organizational scale, what is important, right? Because with these metrics, you can actually give teams better directions. And that's also what we're doing at Atlassian. We are also measuring how much time we spend on certain things, like changing the business versus keeping the lights on. So we're calling changing the business all feature work, everything that we do in terms of new features. Keeping the lights on would be then just like maintaining the infrastructure, doing the real breaking bugs, and working on those. So this is keeping the lights on. So we're just like dividing these things and measuring how much time we spend on these things, and there are certain numbers that we want to hit, or that also our organization wants to say, yeah, we want to move forward. So we want to spend more time on changing the business. But this is not all. We're also measuring how much time we spend on developer productivity, because this is an important metric for us, right? So we use actually Atlassian Analytics for that. So you can see here the graphs on just like how much they spend. So we started with the developer productivity initiative back in February, and we said just like the team can spend 20% of the time on developer productivity. So you can see the numbers are getting worse or better sometimes, but this is also what we give the teams. Now, we can measure a lot of things, I said that, right? But what does it mean if we are productive, or if we are productive or not, right? So GitHub did this experiment called the Good Day Project. So they asked actually their developers, right, how good was your day? And, you know, some days are good, some other days are worse, right? So you can see that here on the graph. But then they wanted to overlay that with actually the numbers, the metrics. So they did that. And guess what? They couldn't find a correlation between how developers felt and what the numbers were showing. There was no correlation between those two metrics. So can we really measure productivity? Are we trying to move productivity? Because we're trying to optimize sometimes, yeah, let's get it down. The planning phase needs to get down, or the coding phase, or the review phase. We need to just like make it faster, be more productive. Thank you, Frederick Winslow-Taylor. But you know what? Software development is not a production line. We can't treat it as a production line. We're not developing the same car over and over again. Software development is a creative process, and some things that we know that we have done in the past, we can do again. Yeah, we can do that. But some things are totally new, and it takes longer, and we can't really say how long it takes. So here's another quote. Measure what's important, but don't make important what you can measure, right? Also very important, right? Don't just like look at the pure numbers, because guess what? You as a developer and your team actually knows what's wrong in your software development, right? So you need to ask your developers. And actually we're trying to just like fix the metrics, but then we found out that we're not doing the right things here. We need to ask our developers, right? And it's not just like about asking the developers, right? We just like needed to give them a little bit more guidance about just like not how you feeling. Are you feeling satisfied or not, right? And then thumbs up, thumbs down. So we asked actually the developers, how satisfied are you with these areas, in these specific areas? How satisfied are you with your speed to ship quality code, or with your waiting time that you probably have, or with your execution independence? Are you just like independent enough? Are you running autonomous teams? Are you just like waiting a lot for other teams? Like your access to tools, practices, and processes, or your effort in managing external standards like security and governance. Now, are you satisfied with that, or is that too much? Managing your code and your pipeline and your infrastructure, or just like how's your ramp-up time for new developers? Is that okay, right? Do we ramp up them? Or how's your developer satisfaction overall? So I got a couple of minutes left. So I would just like want to ask you, actually, what is your biggest developer pain point, right? Your biggest developer joy challenge that you see from those lists. So please scan the code, and we will just like look at the results in a sec to just like see if you're struggling with your speed to ship quality code, with your wait time, with your execution independence. What is the largest pain point in your developer joy, world? Give you a couple of seconds, and then we can just like try to look at the results of the group here. All right, let me do this and then find the results page. Oh, sorry for that. Oh no, don't say which mobile provider. Oh, even worse. All right, we got 10 people right now on that, and the largest pain point is actually managing your code pipeline and infrastructure, as it looks like. Wow, 50%. That's a lot, right? That's a lot. So it's all the shift left things that are actually happening. 53%. All right, that is interesting. All right. Thanks for this small little experiment. But we are not actually just asking these things, right? These things. We are not asking just like how satisfied are you with that, because different teams, actually we have a lot of development teams, and different teams, actually for different teams, different things are important. So we are also asking like how important is that for you? So we're also asking this. And then actually we put it on we calculate an opportunity score and see just like where things land on the opportunity here. And then if things turning red, we give that to the teams and say that your teams need to do something about it, right? To work on that. If things are green, still you can work on that, but you seem to be okay. So we're doing this survey, and if you want to do the survey, you can also just like go to that URL and then going through all these questions, and it will tell you at the end where you struggle the most or where you should just like work on. Or just like remember, for the ones that have no coverage here, remember the bit.ly/developerjoy, right? And then enter that later. Great. So, but the thing is, right? If you know just like what's struggle, where you struggle, in which area you struggle, right? You just like need to try to fix things. You need to do things, right? There's no developer productivity department that tells you just like how to improve your metrics. It's up to you to do things. And whatever you do, I told you we're using 20%, right? If you were just like doing a developer experience hackathon, just like carve out 1 day or 2 days to just like do a hackathon, or use your 20% time, right? This is, as said, this is what we do. Not every team is doing that because we measured it and it's more like a 5% time. So we are doing more like a developer joy weeks where we just like work 4 weeks on features and take 1 week off to work on our developer joy. Or to include it in your sprints, right? You can also do that. But not only just like you saw what the flaky test detector team did, the Confluence team there, they spread their learnings, right? It's also important if you just like found something that works for you, spread the learning so other teams can just like benefit from that. They can learn from your experience. It's a learning organization. And so, for example, the Punit people, like from the Punit bot, they actually put out this blog post, and we're blogging a lot, and said the Punit bot is born, and explaining how much how it helped them, how it's working, and so on and so on. So it helps actually, and now actually 20 teams at Atlassian are running the Punit bot and got pinged by the Punit bot in the morning. So sum this up. I know I'm a little bit over time. Sorry for that. It's your measurements. That's one thing. It's showing you, but the measurements are just like showing you signals. It doesn't tell you about the developer productivity or developer experience. It's just like showing you signals. And then you have your survey results. Give those to your autonomous running teams so they can fix things in their own way. Give them also time, not just say try to fix things in between, but give them actually time to do this, right? And then fix your quality, your progress, and your value that you're going to this doing to this moving to that you're helping your customers, creating value for your customers. So all these three things, right? And I also wanted to do a Venn diagram. If all these three things come together, this is actually where developer joy is happening. If you work on high quality code, if your work flows through the processes, and if you're just like creating value for your customers and your customers love what you're doing, you are also enjoying what you're doing, right? And this is actually the reason why we became developers, right? We wanted to have fun, right? And create something, and we need to bring back that developer joy, so we need to work on that. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.